Hey y'all, I am former State Representative Attica Scott, and today with Stay Live Streams, I am interviewing Councilwoman Shameka Parrish-Wright about the Louisville Metro Consent Decree. As you know, the Consent Decree is between the U.S. Department of Justice, Louisville Metro Government, and the Louisville Metro Police Department. Thanks for joining me today on Stay Live Streams in my conversation with Latoya Johnson of the City of New Orleans and its Consent Decree. Let's get into the questions.
To those in our community who demanded change, thank you for speaking up.
To our community, thank you for your partnership as we move forward.
Well, we're going to be talking about the consent decree that was recently signed between Louisville Metro Government, the Louisville Metro Police Department, and the U.S. Department of Justice.
At the end of the day, the people of Louisville deserve constitutional and effective policing and nothing less.
Thank y'all again for joining us at State Live Streams. I am former State Representative Attica Scott, and it is my honor today to interview Councilwoman Shameka Parrish-Wright about the Louisville Metro Consent Decree. And you all are familiar with the consent decree, I'm sure. Councilwoman Parrish-Wright is, of course, one of my favorite people. She is an advocate. She's a mama. She is the executive director of Vocal Kentucky, and she serves on Louisville Metro Council. And Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, I want to start with folks getting to know a little bit about you and the work that you've done. You've done a lot of projects. So one of them that we've talked about over the years is, and I'd love for folks to get an update on where it is a book about the protests from 2020. So how's that going?
We I got busy. I ran for mayor, uh, and running for mayor. After that, my seat for my council district came up, and so I ran for that. And then I just kept putting things on the back burner. But we have the starter of a We Get There Together. It's about the stories of Injustice Square and all of the organizing around the Breonna Taylor movement. And I'm excited because I've always wanted a coffee table book with pictures, with memes, with songs, and kind of telling the stories from different angles because we had some amazing people who supported the movement from their living room because of COVID, right? Who shared, who donated supplies. And you don't hear about that. We hear about protesters and civil unrest and our city almost burned. But what they don't hear about is the beauty that was developed out of there. The community Breeway was born out of the Injustice Square movement. And so I wanted us to tell that story. But now we're coming up on 5 years, and now I'm perfectly positioned to make sure that this book with an online website, because we had a lot of people support our work from around the nation, from around the world, and we want to have the website accompanying it so that people can make sure that they support it. But the biggest thing is it's going to help fund the Kentuckiana Injustice Freedom Fund, what we call KIF. This was set up with mutual aid to help with legal support, to help protesters, because there's a lot of our folks who were out there with us who are still struggling with charges, who are still struggling with trying to find housing, stability, jobs. It's an ongoing thing. It's a way that you kind of get held back for standing up and speaking up, and their First Amendment rights were basically taken from them as they many of them were criminalized. Even us,
Yeah.
right? We were arrested on bogus charges, and so I'm excited about dedicating the time. That's my 5 year gift to the community is to have this We Get There Together coffee table books. I'll be putting a call out to do some listening circles and for people to contribute. We already have some great stories, artwork, things that people have done. So this will tell the bigger story of Injustice Square and the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement.
I love that so much, y'all. This is one of the things that I appreciate about Councilwoman Parrish-Wright is that she continues the work that started in 2020. And she's with us on her birthday, so give her some birthday love in the comments for sure.
Thank
So
you.
one of the things that I talked about before, and I say often about Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, is that I appreciate her honesty, her integrity, her boldness, her accountability, and transparency back to us in community and her community engagement. I want to talk to you some, Councilwoman, that's used in legislation and
Yeah,
language used in something like the consent decree. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I know as a former state representative, oftentimes ordinances, bills are written in ways that are difficult for people to understand, and sometimes it's intentional. They use $10 words when they can use a dollar word.
that's
So,
right.
can you talk about what it's like to try to translate those $10 words to people in community who are trying to understand legislation?
Thank you. As a former representative, I don't have to tell you that language
Yeah.
matters. There's a difference between shall and will. There's a difference between a resolution and then an ordinance that is changing a law. A resolution is formally recognizing something, and resolutions are important to who they're important to. I've seen resolutions from my colleagues for people who take care of dogs and cats to people who've actually given a lot of service. And recently, the one piece of legislation that I did get to get passed was the wrongful conviction resolution for honoring our folks who have been wrongfully convicted. And there's no fund out here for them. There's no automatic money for them. And so even after their conviction has passed, they're still dealing with that because of what they were charged with. So the language is this is my first year. I just completed my first year as an elected official. But before then, I was an advocate. I was on the other side. I was in the audience. I was holding up signs that say, free the people, make Louisville a sanctuary city, help establish an affordable housing trust fund, because I know how valuable that language is, because that's our history. In the history books, it won't be memes in there. It won't be your social media posts. It'll be these formal pieces of legislation in these history books that tell us that on this day, a decision was made to formally recognize the harms of our police department. There's no formal recognition of what happened and what's been all over the news and people have been convicted of in the Explorer program through our police department, where young kids, which was so crazy that while we were at Injustice Square, aka Jefferson Square Park, these people who had been victims in the Explorer program came to us there. They came to me and they said, I suffered abuse through this. I'm still going through these changes. And they marched with us, they sat with us. And so, but they're not formally recognized. If you dig, you don't see much about that Explorer program. So it was important for me that while it's my turn, right? Because I really feel like in 2020, and all the subsequent years and opportunities, there should have been some formal recognition of the documented and undocumented harms of our Metro Police Department. This isn't our first consent decree in recent years. This is our second one. The first one was about diversity. And people like David James and other folks, they were young police officers then fighting to have a seat at the table, fighting for leadership. And because of the consent decree, they now you see we have now what our fourth black person and as chief, right? And so that don't just happen overnight. All of the things in the games that we see are because these things were formally recognized. And so whether it's a federal oversight or local or state, I didn't see that happening at the state level. I didn't see it happening at the local level. So I said, how can we combine what the people have said, what the DOJ findings have recommended, and what the history of policing report by the people at U of L who were commissioned to tell the truth in the truth and transformation process? How can we have that be a part of our official record for our city so that when you and I are gone, 50 years from now, I mean, I hope we're still alive, but 50 years from now, it'll read that this happened, that this Metro Council for this year said that they want to formally document that. It didn't make them do anything. It didn't take away from what the reforms and what the police are working on now, but it acknowledged that moment in time where there's so many stories of abuse that we'll never hear. There's so many of our friends and family who are scared to speak out, who are happy that they got away with a ticket or they just got arrested and was locked up for 3 days, but we'll never know their story. And this honors all of the in betweens, all of the well known. So, yes, the language matters. And so we wanted to put that in a formal way. And I didn't want it to be, this wasn't Shameka's language. This was language from the people. And in that, the People Consent Decree group came up with a list of demands, which we know it's going to take hell and high water to get those demands, but we still wanted those demands to be honored. So every word of the People's Consent Decree was about what the people have asked for to be formally recognized in our Louisville books.
That's right. Shout out to the People's Consent Decree
Yes.
because it takes bold leadership from elected officials and from community
Yes.
to advocate for what we deserve. And we know that we won't always get what we deserve, but if we don't fight for it, then we may as well throw in the towel. So at
That's
least
right.
we're fighting for it. And thank you, Councilwoman, for bringing up the wrongful conviction
Yes.
resolution that you got passed, because as a state representative, I filed legislation related to
Wow.
wrongful conviction compensation.
Yes.
So this is important. All of this is connected, actually, when we
Yes.
think about it.
And
So
that's why,
yes,
because of your legislation, we I've been asking people, bring me your framework of your like, use me. I am a tool, and you're expected, and you know this. You've been a councilwoman before too. You're expected to be an expert in everything. And I already work a full time job. I have a part time job. I have a full time and a part time staff. But we want to work on legislation. We want to pass policies. I look at Councilman Arthur, over 150 pieces of legislation, right? I'm doing that and more that I want to do, but I need help from the community. So please bring us your legislation. Let's talk about getting policies that help improve and save lives. And that's what the wrongful conviction was about. I literally, this weekend, while watching my grandkids for the New Year holiday, a special came up about wrongful convictions. And one of the exonerees was on that special
wow,
in this national production about how many people are being wrongfully convicted. So we also, because of your legislation, included urging our state government to set aside monies in a fund to help people.
yeah,
There was a gentleman that sat in jail 6 years, lost teeth, lost his place to live, lost everything. And when he got out, his friend had to scrape up money to put him in a hotel.
mm,
6 years, a public defender successfully defended and fought his case. He was exonerated, but what is he left with? And so if you make it through that, you deserve to be honored. And I'm not saying, and they're not asking for millions of dollars, they're asking for homes, for jobs. And so thank you. That is modeled after what you did. And I hope that we can continue to take this to the statewide
that's right.
level and keep helping people.
Absolutely. Well, I do know that Representative Jason Nemus has filed legislation around wrongful conviction
That is
compensation as
great.
well.
Oh, great.
You
I'll
all can,
be I'll be looking you up, Mr. Venus.
that's right. So I want to talk a little bit, Councilwoman, about your tenure on Louisville Metro Council. So you've done quite a bit in the time that you've been there. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience so far being on council?
It's been a whirlwind. It's been a roller coaster. I came to represent the people, and I still stand firm in that. I came not saying that I had all the answers, willing to work across lines of difference, trying to show people that there's another side to activist Shameka. But I'm not running from who I am as an activist and who I am as a community organizer. An activist takes action for what they believe in. I see my role is to take that step further. When we were out at the square, we were out at Injustice Square, we said that we have to take this protest, this power, this people power that we're building, to policy change. And I've always been honored to serve and work with you on all of your campaigns. And people think that this is just like, they just do what each other say. No, we believe in social justice. We believe in reform because it improves not only our lives, it improves not only Democratic lives, Republican lives, independent lives. We don't ask the party when we're asking about better policy. I don't care what your policy is. Your party is. I care about that policy that's going to help improve your life. And I've seen you mirror that. I've seen you work across lines up in Frankfurt. I've seen you do it at the council level. And so for me, when I didn't want this when I was at the square, I didn't want to run for mayor either. I decided to run for mayor because we were in Atlanta door knocking for my birthday, ironically. We were door knocking, and the decision had been made to bring Chief Erica Shields to Louisville. And people called me from within the system. I've always had police officers, people who work for Metro government, who reach out to me and say, Shameka, something's not right. I need you to, and I am proud to be that voice. It makes me very vulnerable, but I don't want people losing their jobs and all of that stuff. And so because of that, and because I don't work for anybody local, I'm able to express that for them. But they had called me and they said, "Oh, Shameka, they're choosing Erica Shields," and I was like, "Wait, that wasn't a situation with Rashad Brooks there. Like, what happened? Why are we reaching outside of our bucket?" Louisville in Kentucky has a great deal of experts right here, homegrown people who have come here, who've grown here, who've left like you did, come back, who believe in Louisville enough to be in these positions. There are some cities who have hired police chiefs who don't come from a police background. Lord knows we are far away from that. But that would be freaking amazing to have somebody who can come from a more unbiased level. But anyway, being in Atlanta, hearing that, and it was our current mayor, our mayor Fisher had turned out, so he couldn't run again. I wasn't running against a black person or a black woman. It was an open seat. And I said, you know what? To seal in these changes that we've been fighting for since 2020, some of us are going to have to run for office. Now, I would tell you, it's not for the weak. Running for office is a journey. You understand who your friends are, who your supporters are. You actually lose people in the process. You actually think people will line up because they want you to run, and then some of your people start distancing themselves. Oh my God, the public and private support that was shown for me during that process was a lot. But it was worth it because I said, if I do this, I'm going to set the tone because we would have had an example of Eric Adams in New York as mayor if I hadn't have put my hat in. I announced first, and I've done that with all my races. I announced first. I was like, I need to do this because if I don't do this, I don't show the young people. I don't show the people who are oppressed. I don't show them that there is a way through this system to bring better change. And I knew that I can represent that. I've been there and done that, and my business is already out there, so I ain't had nothing to hide. And but it was really talking to my family and telling them to get ready because if they can't get to you, they'll try to get to the people around you. So really getting my family and my close ones prepared for that. But anyway, coming back and decided I would run for mayor, being the first to ever announce that early. Now I see that's happening again. But the reason is because I knew I wouldn't raise the millions of dollars. Black, progressive women candidates, we don't raise the same dollar amount, but we can raise people power because we take care of the community. And I think they underestimated my work with Jobs with Justice, my work with Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, my work with Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, my work where I even worked in factories, where I worked at Swift, where I worked at Plastic Eject Mold in Fairdale. I've made connections all over this county and all over the state through that work, and they underestimated that. And so because of that, we had people power. And with that people power, we beat out $1 million candidates. And I came in second in the Democratic primary, but it was to really show that it's possible. It's possible. Less than $100,000 raised, but that people power. If you raise the people power, you don't need as much money. And so those high money candidates, they spent over $53 per vote. Comparatively, I spent $3.56 per vote. So that's people power. And that is what I use, and that's what I will continue to do. So in this role as Metro Council, people thought that I took this role to run for mayor again, and I haven't even made my decision if I'm running again. I took this role because in my community, my neighbors asked me, Shameka, can you run? We want to keep a strong person in District 3 seat because we've seen how our district continues to shrink around the distilleries and things like that, and we want to make sure that we don't get forgotten. So I'm here because the people asked me to be here, and I'm excited to do this. But after 1 year in, I called her in the middle of the night. I was like, "Oh my God, how did you do this? How did you do this?" Now I understand why she unplugs at night and just reset. So that's what I'm doing is trying to make sure that I put the mask on myself, breathe, relax, and go back at it every day. But I love fighting for the people.
Thank you so much for that, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Appreciate you so
I've never
much.
answered the question that way, and I really appreciate you guys.
Of course. And for folks who are watching, if and when the councilwoman decides to run for mayor, she will make that announcement when she's good and ready. So you have every right when you are asked if you're going to run to say, I don't know yet, or I'm not ready to
I
say.
don't know.
Okay. All right. So can you tell us a little bit more? You talked about how your constituents asked you to run. Can you talk about how they have now responded to you since you've been a councilwoman?
Oh my goodness, they're not only responding in a positive way, they're learning a lot. We see more people engaged in boards and commission, which is one of the things I wanted. I wanted to be mayor because we have over 80 boards and commissions that I would appoint people in this building right now to. I'm tired of the usual suspects. I'm tired of police themselves. If those things worked, we wouldn't be where we are now, right? So if we want to make those changes, then we have to encourage and support people to get in these roles. So they've been very supportive of me and they've been wanting to run. I know I will be challenged for my seat. I would have to give up this seat to run for mayor. I have a decision to make, but I am excited about the competition, about the people who will foul to run against me as a councilwoman and who would run as mayor because this is a nonpartisan.
We're going to pause and
We're
make
gonna
an
pause it like
announcement.
that.
The lights of Kentucky Performing Arts shine on more than our shows. They illuminate a pathway of discovery for all throughout our Commonwealth. A pathway of creativity, confidence, possibility, of brilliance, inspiration, curiosity, and wonder. For 40 years, Kentucky Performing Arts has led a pathway to unite the Commonwealth around the joy of discovering the arts, and will continue to shine this light far into the future.
Hey, I know you're watching the live stream right now, but I want to take a moment to tell you to check out this new book right here over my shoulder. Believe me, it'll be worth it.
And we're back, y'all. And this is what happens when you're going live in a community
In
space.
community.
Yes, exactly.
28th and Broadway. Who would have
Yes,
thought?
exactly.
Who would have thought? We
Yes.
were advocating when I ran for mayor. It was announced that Elder Serve might close. It closed. And some reporters had reached out to me and wanted to do an interview about my candidacy, and I chose to be right here at 28th and Broadway to highlight. It was right after a decision was made to give like 50 million in the community, and I was like, the irony in we're giving 50 million to different organizations in the community, but a pillar, a place that serves our seniors, was closing, and now here we are. This is why advocacy works.
Mhm.
All forms, and I didn't do it by myself. You didn't do it by yourself. You had all these people, the Urban League, all these folks coming together. But now here we are. My former opponent, Tim Finley, Reverend Finley, all these folks coming together, and now my mother, who lives in J-Town, comes down here a few times a week, thanks to Jackie Floyd, to Elder Serve, which is open, which is thriving, which really still needs the ongoing support, but is doing amazing. But it was closed when I was here and running for mayor.
That's
So
right.
a lot can happen.
Okay. I mean, this may happen throughout everyone. So
It's
just
okay. It's
go with
life.
it.
Life
Yes.
be life,
That's
right?
right. It does. So I just want to ask one more question, get to know you question. And the councilwoman, like she said, she's very transparent, very
Yes.
open. No secrets there, right? So, but just to get to know you a little bit more. So I have
Yeah.
one more question, and then we're going to get into the consent decree. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the more difficult ordinances and resolutions that you've worked on, and what has it been like to try to get them passed?
Yeah, I would say the ceasefire resolution was really hard. The people's consent.
Can you tell us what is the ceasefire
The
resolution?
ceasefire resolution was calling for us, one, to stop investing into the war that is happening in Gaza, where people are being killed. Our I've been a part. People, I didn't just pop up. I didn't pop up during the Breonna Taylor movement, but I've been a part of this Palestinian struggle and understanding it, and being a co-host to events for more than 20 years. We've had Palestinian youth come here and do artistic performances and show us what it's like to be in their bed and to wake up to bombs, to wake up to seeing their neighborhood demolished through war. And so I've always been connected because I feel like our struggles are connected. It's less about the lines or the seas or the oceans or the things that separate us. It's more about the issues that unite us. And Palestinian people are our people. They are our black, brown people who are struggling for their identity, but most of all for their humanity. And so I joined in with Councilman Arthur on the ceasefire legislation that was guided by Palestinian people who live here in our city and in our state, and who said, we want this. We want to have this formally recognized because we live here. Just like we made it a sanctuary city, we need to know that where we live supports the humanity of people, that supports people being able to survive and thrive, no matter their ethnic background, no matter where they're living at. And so when I found out that we, in essence, and more than essence, our tax dollars, more than 9 million of our tax dollars are going to fund this war, to fund the weapons and all of that, I had to speak up. And I was out there for the Ukrainians as well. And our council came together with a similar piece of legislation about the Ukrainians and speaking out against the travesty and what was happening to them. I thought, hey, of course they would do the same for this. But this is when politics and power, politics are who gets what, when, where, and how. And when that came into play, you saw the division. people try to make this like, oh, you're against Jewish people. Jewish people are a part of this. Palestinian people are Jewish people as well. And there were Jewish people a part of those conversations who were still stood strong with our legislation. But they sent in the divisive people to separate. These people you never see on the forefront. You never see on social media talking. They never express their feelings like we do and how we talk about our work, but they're in the background controlling the mayor, controlling the administration, and pushing them to do what their will is. And so it was important for me to be a part of that legislation. It was really hard. I mean, I had tears in my eyes because I didn't see my colleagues understand how deep and how connected this was to them and their everyday decision making. That was the hardest thing to accept because we got it through committee after a lot of work, a lot of work. But this is also the games they play. Oh, we'll get it through committee, but we're not going to support it through the big council. Or some of your people who support it through committee, they changed it at the end. So they want to be good on both sides. They want the community to love them. They want to be able to do things with their colleagues. It's a lot of quid pro quo going on, and I don't come in with that. Folks were guarded against me, so they didn't welcome me into this to this council. But I had a lot to learn, and I saw so much during that process. At the last end, we had our president join, and I was really worried. I said to Councilman Arthur, I don't know if he's joining for the right reasons. I feel like he's coming in to kill it. You know, the operatives, the things you find out on the Call of Duty, the things where people are like planning and plotting, y'all, that's a real thing. It happens. I think the most violent decisions happen in boardrooms, behind closed doors, and with elected officials. If you all don't see that they are violent first, before you see the violence that we're seeing, like I'm in the West End, I birth kids here. You're going to talk about this person might be carrying a gun, but you're not talking about the people in these boardrooms who are making the violent decision making, which trickles down to our community. And so, because of that, I wanted our community to show that I'm committed to the humanity in everyone, and I care about the Palestinians that live here and abroad. And I couldn't imagine. It's like I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm here in Louisville. We're doing good, but over the Rhine, where I'm from, is being bombed every day. That to me is a travesty. Kids, women, children, and the hostages. We called for a ceasefire on both sides, and they wanted to take that word out of there. They said that they said we were divisive first, like we started it. But then they said the word ceasefire was divisive. We were just a resolution, just calls on it. It's not a binding thing where it's a law, but it gives an opportunity to formally document. We're asking you to stop this. We're asking you to stop supporting it, calling on our congressmen, calling on everybody that can make a decision to not give money to it, to not fund it, and to stop the ceasefire. Stop. Make sure that it's a ceasefire that people don't shoot. That means I don't want no shooting on either side. I don't want any hostage. Release the hostages. We asked for all of those things, and at the end of the day, people got into it, broke it apart, and then we were stuck. And then it had to sit on the books. Now I'm gonna tell you, every council, and I'm glad you asked me that. Nobody has asked me that before, but I will tell you, every time we had a council meeting after the committee meeting where we passed it, it was heartbreaking to me that Councilman Arthur was being told, don't call it because they're just going to vote it down. But the Palestinian people asked us, they didn't want to be slapped in their face like that. So they asked us to just hold and wait. So we held and wait. And then what happens is if it does, after it makes out of committee, if it's never called for the full vote, it sits there until it dies off. And so it died off at the end of our session last year.
Well, and thank you, Councilwoman, for walking through that entire
Yeah.
process because that's what people. That's an educational opportunity for people
Yes.
because listening the resolutions, listening the ordinances is important. It's also important to break down what that entire process could be like
That's
for
right.
one piece of legislation.
That's
So
right.
thank you for doing that.
And thank you for asking about that because there was a recent Courier Journal article that I just met with two of my colleagues, Councilwoman Shanklin and Councilwoman Tammy Hawkins, yesterday. They took me out for my birthday and we talked about policy stuff. But Councilwoman Shanklin noticed that in the Courier Journal there was an article about what legislators accomplished in the last year. My accomplishments, the things I filed for, the things I was able to help get passed and be a part of was not listed. Councilwoman Shanklin's weren't, Councilwoman Hawkins weren't. And we thought it was ironic that us and we had seven people, black people on council. Now we have five, and you did not see three of those five. The things that they've been a part of, the things they've done is not listed. That's why we must tell our whole story. So if you want to keep up with District 3, go to louisvilleky.gov/District 3. I have a newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks. I have an annual report that talks about what every dollar we spent went to, how we supported local businesses, how we have to tell our own stories. And that's why these kind of sessions are so important, because the media is controlled by a few people. Our city is controlled about 5 or 7 families. It might be growing now, might be 9. And these people control so much what you see. If I'm getting too much earned media, they don't share my name. They don't always quote my organization. It's all strategic, but they call on me all the time. Can you show up here? Can you do this? Can you do that? But it's important. Check out. Before I even got on council, I followed every 26 of my colleagues' newsletters. Make sure you follow those newsletters, because it tells you what they're doing. I don't just regurgitate the mayor's information. I don't work for the mayor. The mayor and the council, we have the same amount of what you would say power. I call it, I'm on people power. He's on administrative power. But we have about the same amount. So his budget that he presented, we don't have to accept that as council. We just need 14 votes, and we can put our own budget. But people don't want to put in the work, or they should want to put in the work to create a people's budget that makes sense. So a lot of my council members act like the mayor is our president or our governor, but he is not. He is a manager of a city, of funding, of budget, of a purse that we as council control. And the confusion is that these mayors, when they're unchecked, they operate like they're a tyrant, or like they get to control a lot of things, and they don't. And the buck stops with me. I'm not here. I don't work for Greenberg. I don't hate Greenberg because I lost against Greenberg. It's not personal, but I don't work for him, and I don't trust his agenda. So I'm here for the people. And so I even said to Councilwoman Dorsey, we're still good friends. And when she gave up this seat, I said, are you sure you want to put all your eggs in that basket? Because those people didn't stomp them grounds and work that hard to put you as a deputy mayor. She said, I think I can get more done across the street. I said, Keisha, be careful, because you go over there, you're under the administration. So your voice is different. You can't say and do the same things, but you stay here representing the people. You got more. And I bet you she's had some buyer's remorse. And I respectfully worked with her and understand she made a decision because she thought it would be better. She made more money, right? I get it. But what happened, look how they did her. Look how they did her and other black women in leadership. I spoke out about the former police chief, Jacqueline Villarreal. She called me after an article was released because I saw them throwing her under the bus. That doesn't mean she's perfect, or I feel like everything she said and did. She had some personality, community stuff to work on, because a lot of those police chiefs come in and they're like so guarded because they find it hard to follow the administration and listen to the people. But we as the people, we have to hold so many truths, right? We got to trust that if we had to call the police right now, they're going to come in here and treat us fairly.
That's
We
right.
got to do that every day, but they don't. So it's hard for them. But anyway, when I saw them trying to throw her on the bus and use this because she was firing people who weren't treating people right, there was an officer who treated a homeless person, and another officer who's arrested all the people under House Bill 5. He witnessed this officer violating this man's right using excessive force. He's pending he's pending a suspension. But the city, Mayor Greenberg and David James and all of them just gave him an award. Nicole George just gave him an award for his homeless outreach services.
Wow.
He's the same one who ticketed the pregnant woman. See, and so because we have those different agendas, I'm not against the mayor when the mayor is right. I
That's
want to
right.
be there. They don't invite me when they're doing the things I like.
Yeah.
But when they are doing things wrong and they're doing wrong by my people, I'm going to speak out. And so that puts me, I have some people on council who simply carry the mayor's water. I'm not there for the mayor. I work for you all. And because of that, that's why I meet so much resistance in the policy work. It relates right back to the policy work. They don't want me to have any wins. No legislative wins, no policy wins, because then that shows that what I'm doing works. And then that inspires more people to run and do what I'm doing. And it works. And it dilutes their power and their control. So they do it by controlling my colleagues who's blocked the things that they can, and they're supposed to be listening to their constituents. So I don't. It's nothing against them, but I'm always going to do what's right for the people. And so at the last minute for the people's consent decree, which was so frustrating, some of my colleagues said, well, we don't know the language. I sent it out to them months and months ahead of time. I had called all the people down. I said, come and show up, show them the district that you're in, because I don't want them to say that's just a District 1 thing or District 3 thing. I said, come show them what district you're in. Come, remember, I come from that audience. And then they waited until it was that right before that council meeting where it was supposed to be voted on. And then they said, do you want to consider holding it? After I've sent you, I got emails. I emailed them because I've learned that folks will say one thing in a voice conversation and then do something different in a council meeting. So I email everything transparent. Please open records request me. Please. I love it. Because I email them. I emailed them months ahead of time. I said, do you have any really changes you want to make? You want to, and one guy said, oh, I'll vote for it out of committee, but I'm not going to vote for it at the full council because I want to support Humphreys. This is not against Humphreys because we're asking for accountability. It's not against him. We're asking that this be formally recognized. And so they play these games, these political games, and they treat you, they're very condescending in the way that they communicate with you. I managed millions of dollars in all of my last 3 jobs. I manage staff, I manage team. You don't hear about that. All you hear is Shameka the activist, like I just run around, just beat my fist in the air. I do that too, and I'm not ashamed of that. But I manage money with no discrepancies. I have run an amazing organizations. I help them expand. I have federal experience. I have statewide. They don't call on me for none of that. I've even been a gun violence victim. I've been shot at and had to deal with gun violence 2 times in my life. I've been robbed. They don't bring none of my. I could tell them how I survived the hood, how I came out of that, how I sold drugs and to live and survive. They don't want this expertise, and they don't want the people who are experienced and ready to do it. And so they fund the same old people, the same old things. So I'm using this position to follow the money, to track policy changes, to reduce the red tape it takes to access government, to encourage more people to run for office. We're going to be training people to run for office together because what it takes to run in the gateway to the South, I'm telling you, they ain't got nothing in the books for this. They don't have, you got to get your people ready. You got to tell me, like, I don't care if it's $5. You got to donate because what we're doing is changing, and that change is uncomfortable. It's loud, but it's intentional. It's inclusive, and that's what we represent. And so I think that watching you navigate that, I didn't do a 2-year seat because I watched her do this, and I was like, so you got to run, then you got to learn stuff, then you got to get things done, then you run in the next year. I wanted a 4-year seat because in a 4-year seat, you can put more of your vision in there. You got a little time to plan out and say, year 1 we'll do this, year 2 we'll do this. So if I do run for another seat, it'll be another 4-year seat. So that's why mayor is appealing to me. But I do want more of us to run. There's some people who got in those seats because nobody applied. No other person. We had over 40 something seats run unopposed. That should never happen. No seat should run unopposed, including mine, because it keeps people on their toes and it lets them do. The last thing I'll say is I've learned that working across lines is important. I needed the Republicans and independent folks to see that, yes, I'm a Democrat. I mean, it's like a bad relationship. My own party fought my nomination and my application process, but I'm still a true Democrat. So much so that I had people when I ran for mayor switching from independent and Republican to vote for me. And you don't have to do it in a general. In general, you can vote for anybody. And now that it's nonpartisan, it really opens it up. So I'm excited to see what's going to come out of this nonpartisan thing. But what really made me understand is when I did that wrongful conviction legislation, I had somebody like Dan Symes who like rolled his eyes at me a bunch and breathed heavy every time I said something in the beginning. Who on this and medical marijuana, boy, I see him light up. On this, so I start learning what's important to my colleagues across all those differences. I did want to. It does need to be more diversity, but looking across the lines and understanding that some of them are real true. Like this is their goal. This was never on my resume builder list. I didn't want this, but I'm realizing that I'm working with people that that do. So I had to understand that their approach to this work is different than mine. I'm coming to be a tool, to be a messenger, to rep. I didn't hide that, to represent the social justice movement. Some of them, this is the top of their game. Some of them have said, I always wanted to be a council person. I don't know that. That ain't me, right? But I respect that they are coming in. So you have to learn what's important to them. I know Councilwoman Chapel, she cares about the trees and the parks and build back better and all of that. And then I know Councilwoman Rui is all about constituent concerns and services. So I had to take the time. I can tell you what's important to each and every one of my colleagues. That's one of the things that I did learn, that if you want to get something done, you got to bring folks along and you have to understand. So I feel like since I've been on council, I voted like a moderate, because some of the things that are priorities to them was not priorities to me. But I did that intentionally. I said, Jacory's still here. Let him keep doing what he's doing. All those people who don't talk to me because they only talk to Jacory because they don't think that I'm intellectually ready, they're gonna have to come and see me. And when they come see me, we're gonna talk about this. Yes, I want housing all over this city. I definitely want affordable housing first, but I want it all over this county. I've never been shy of that. But I also stand for the people, and I show up in community, and I'm an organizer from the community. So Jacory is going to do what I did before I got here.
Yes.
So I am learning what I need to do to continue not just what he was doing, because I got to fight for the things he did get passed. Because if I don't, then we'll see the anti-displacement, all of that stuff be attacked by the mayor's office. I know that's what they're doing. So people we have some of our folks who've been in nonprofit world and policy world who don't respect our approach to this. And I've seen how they communicate with me. I've seen how they try to be inclusive or not. And then I said, oh, okay, you don't want to tell me, but guess who they're gonna have to come and see? Me, the JPs,
Yes.
the Ken Herndons, all of these new folks that are coming on council, they're gonna have to come and talk to us. So we've seen the biggest shift in council than we've seen since merger. So when I came on, it was 10 new people. Now you got Josie Raymond, you got all these other folks coming on. Now you've seen a shift of about 15 people on this council. We've never seen that. There's some really seasoned folks who have transitioned on, and so this is a new ball game for everybody. So anybody that think they got this worked out, and anybody think that they're going to get there together by just carrying the mayor's water, has a new day coming, because that is not happening. And folks who are worried that the Republicans are going to take over, I'm not scared of the red wave. I've watched you deal with that in Frankfurt. We've already been a part of that. And guess what? They've been working their plan. They've been working Project 25. They've been doing it because they do it together. They can argue, fight, whatever, but they vote in the block. They pool their money. I hope that this wakes the Democrats up, who've been fighting us because we say you can do better,
Yes.
and who leave us out. I hope this wakes them up to say, we need to be better together. We need to be bold. We need to take chances on one another. And I don't care if something doesn't get passed. I'm still going to stand with my vote. And you taught me that. You was like, you're going to feel like sometimes you're the only one that's going to say no. Be okay with that. I'm telling you that that's the most sound advice. They laugh at me when stuff get voted down. But every time they vote something down, every time I vote with something, I'm learning. I'm learning and I'm learning, and I'm going to come back and reapproach. So what I need from the public is bring me your framework. Let's fill it in. You bring me a house, a frame ready built. Me and my team will work on the policy changes that you need. But don't expect me to be an expert if you haven't included me in a part of the process. And be straight. Be straightforward. No hidden agendas. I've said to people during the budget process, now you should be talking to council about what you do, including yourself and what you need. I hated that all these organizations were gutted. I hated that. And the last thing I'll do is, as far as concerning with the consent decree, is I'm going to follow the money. Looking at the last 10 years of the police budget, every year the budget is overinflated, and basically they send back millions of dollars every year. So we can afford this without the mayor overinflating their budget again. That's a game that they play. They overinflate the budget, then it comes back, and then they decide where the money goes. But when money first comes through our budget, we as council decide how much is allocated to this, how much is allocated to that. So I'm going to look at the last 10 years of the police budget. I'm going to look at what they sent back, what they were able to spend, and you're not going to overhype this budget and go and gut other organizations that are actually doing the work to fund this consent decree. We can afford the consent decree. That is the most important thing I want you all to hear today. We can afford it without going up on your taxes, without costing you more money. The police have enough money to fund this consent decree, or they wouldn't be sending back millions every time. And I'm disappointed that they want to monitor that as a former police officer. I don't think the police can solve this by themselves. I hate that at every juncture we don't have a community voice there. I think it should be. I don't think that a former police officer can be unbiased in this process. But I've never been. I'm not an expert in the DOJ process. I'm not a lawyer. I'm learning. But I need my lawyers that are watching to be brave. We have a lot of lawyers in this state. We're going to need amicus briefs filed. We're going to need to counteract what they're doing. I need you all to band together, and I need you all to support them. Give them businesses, give them your business on one end so that we can have them in another. Because once they stand out for us, they won't get the government contracts. They won't get the regular funding. They won't get the appointments to judgeship. They won't get that because they've stood out. So we're going to have to support them with our dollars by, yes, go see that attorney Thompson. He is good. He's good with this. He's working with us on this. Please give him your other business so that he can sustain, because that was the only thing that we couldn't do during the protest movement. Over 120 lawyers showed up. Some of them never did criminal law, some of them business. We couldn't financially support them, but they stood up and they stood with us. And I am honored. We got over 1,000 people out of jail because of those lawyers and because of those judges who made the right decision. If we have another movement like that, we gotta be able to support our people. When you put people like me in office, don't alienate me. Support me. I like to be held accountable. See, I come from the community. I come from activism. I come from a family of six. My kids hold me accountable. I'm used to being held accountable. We have a lot of people who elected who are not used to being held accountable. And so because of that, they're not used to being challenged. And so they don't bring people to the table to challenge them. And our mayor's administration is a perfect example of that. You have David James that is putting former police officers in every high position that he can. He's really the mayor, and his lawyer David Kaplan. Those are the really power people. Greenberg is just a messenger. He's a puppet right now, but he has an agenda. Now he's not a stupid puppet. He's smart. He's doing development. He's pushing. He has his own agenda. The other people who are running the things that matter to us day to day are the people who are in charge. And so, just like at our state house, we have a lot of former police officers who are now supposed to be representing all the people, but they're still passing laws and acting like police officers. So I trust the police officers who are willing to recognize that. I have police officers that reach out to me all the time, that tell me about the inconsistencies, that tell me, they say one thing at a press conference. For example, they said they're going to have the body cams on every officer. As soon as that press conference was done, they sent the memo out, and police officers shared that with me. Sent the memo out and said only lieutenants and down. Like, I don't use, if I'm in the media, I got to stand on business because I have a family out here that depends on me. I don't lie to you. Don't think that you have to dig behind everything that they're saying. You have to follow up. You have to ask the questions, and you got to keep showing up to meetings. You got to keep showing up to public meetings and holding them accountable, because they're not used to being held accountable. And these people have an agenda. They want to secure their jobs for the next 4 years. I want to make sure we live and survive this year and next year and the year after. And so the People's Consent Decree, I will be filing that again. It is to formally recognize what has happened. The DOJ's consent decree is what we're now currently going or working through and under it.
And we're going to dig
And
into
we're
that in
going to
just a
get to
moment.
that other stuff.
So thank you so much, Councilwoman. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to dig into the consent decree. This was for you to get to know
Yes.
Councilwoman Parrish-Wright. And I'm also going to ask Maxwell if there have been any questions or
Okay.
comments that relate to Councilwoman Parrish-Wright when we return.
Thank you.
Hey guys, before we get back to the live stream, I'm Tracy, the bartender at Southern Hospitality Bar and Grill, located at 3402 West Broadway. You guys got to come and check us out. You can call your order in, and the phone number is 502-822-1474. Again, I'm Tracy, the bartender at Southern Hospitality. Come check us out, guys.
Hey, I know you're watching the live stream right now, but I want to take a moment to tell you to check out this new book right here over my shoulder. Believe me, it'll be worth it.
So, Councilwoman, can you tell us your initial reactions to the consent decree when it was filed?
I was saying about time. I was worried that them rushing to sign it and without us having a voice might mean that there's some things in there. And as I read it, it's vague on some things, so it gives them a lot of leeway to say, "Oh, we've checked that box and we've done that." But for all goodness sake, it was good that it was signed. So I was glad that it happened and it starts the process.
Thank you. So, you, as well as many folks, encourage Mayor Greenberg to engage the community in the consent decree negotiations and then to sign the decree. What impact do you think that advocacy had on him and his administration?
Oh, it was everything. It was pressure. One of the things I know that he doesn't want me to run against him, right? So I said at our press conference, it starts now. You've already filed. You said it, your intentions to run again. There is no way we can reelect you if you haven't dealt with and listened to the people. And this is a documented way to make sure that the people's voice, as much as possible, is heard. And so he needed to be on the right side of this.
That's right. And this is the more than 200-page consent decree that was filed. So, we want to take a moment to look at a video of
Okay.
you speaking at the press conference where you announced the consent decree resolution.
I think it is important for the full Metro government as an institution to have a formal acknowledgement of the harms of our police department on record. That's what this resolution is about. It's not formally in our record books, it's not on record. Um, it's important to know that we didn't make up these words, that this comes from the DOJ's recommendations, as well as the History of Policing report that was commissioned during the Truth and Transformation Project by U of L. So these are doctors. These are people who are professionals. These are lawyers. These are police officers. These are a bunch of people who are respected across our community for their expertise. They are the ones who put these words together. So they're getting their money, they're getting the raises, they're getting another wellness center, they're getting their new headquarters, they're getting new cars, they're getting new uniforms, they're getting all of that. The next thing is this resolution is for the people, because none of us benefit from those other things that they're getting. If the policing isn't fair and equitable and people aren't treated right, I don't care that you got a new shiny uniform. I want to see your commitment to moving us forward, and I want you paid well in the process.
So that was Councilwoman Parrish-Wright at the press conference where she announced the People's Consent Decree resolution. So, Councilwoman, there are some misconceptions between the consent decree and the People's Consent Decree resolution. Can you explain the difference to us between the two?
Briefly, the DOJ's consent decree is what we witnessed the mayor saying that he signed, and it's the formal recognition with policy reforms and procedural reforms that are put in place at the federal level and in the oversight of that, right? So they're going to monitor it over the time that it is allotted. They're going to fund the positions to make sure it's monitored. That is a formal, those are action steps that are going to happen. The People's Consent Decree is a document that we came together with that combines the History of Policing report that was commissioned through the Truth and Transformation process through U of L, and then also the DOJ's findings with their recommendations. The History of Police report also had recommendations. And then the third part of that is the people, over 100 community groups and organizations and hundreds of signers signed a petition that says, hey, here's are the requirements that the people feel we need to move towards healing and trying to build relationships with our local police department who have wronged us over these many years. And so that wording is all of those wordings that I've taken through the county attorney. It's been approved. And now I want our council to formally have that recognized so that it is in our council books as recognized as a part of our history.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for making the difference, because I know it was confusing to people.
Yes.
The People's Consent Decree also has a group that is meeting regularly, one, to make sure I'm going to file it again, or some version of it will be filed again, and then that we pushed our elected officials to support it, both statewide and local, and then we pushed to get that formally recognized, because the DOJ's response is federal, ours is local and statewide, and we don't have that in our books at this time.
That's right. So, if you're interested in getting involved with the People's Consent Decree, that whole process, the coalition, please reach out to Councilwoman Parrish-Wright about that.
Yes, and there's another group that's a part of that, because I have my role as elected officials who are going to be following it and doing the things that they need to do, and there'll be actions and opportunities for people to join. Please join the work of the People's Consent Decree Coalition.
Absolutely. So, can you tell us a little bit about some of the hardships that you had beyond what you may have already shared in trying to get your resolution passed? If you feel like you've already shared those hardships, that's fine as well.
No, it's fine. I checked all the boxes because I'm one of the newest council people. I knew it was important to let everyone know. I'm straight up, no chaser. I emailed everyone. I let them know my intentions. On March 13th, I held a press conference. One, it signifies when Breonna Taylor was killed by our Louisville Metro Police Department, and then two, I wanted to let them know that I was in the works of getting this people's consent decree. I met with the mayor. I met with a lot of key players because I wanted everybody at the table. Very intentional. Send emails, let everybody know what's happening. When we drafted that legislation and got it approved through the county attorney's office, you got to understand the county attorney serves not only council but also serves the mayor. Got it through them. Everything was cleared. Then the next step of that was to get it introduced, get it filed, get it introduced, and then after that work with council people who had issues with it that would stop them from supporting it and voting for it because it's after that it's assigned to a committee. After it was assigned to the committee, going to that committee meeting, talking to them about the importance of it, why we're supporting this, getting it passed through committee, then that way it comes on a calendar for the full council, and then going through those processes. And so it was a lot of work, a back and forth. And I, at every juncture, said, please share what you need, let me know. And you got to remember, I'm new. So I not only emailed, I called key people, I talked to people, I did steps that some people don't need to do. Our President Winkler, if he has some legislation, he doesn't have to call all those people and email everybody and get people involved. He can file it and deal with it on the floor. I didn't do it that way. I did all those things, and then it got to discussion in caucus and all of those things, and getting it through committee, and all of that was really, really challenging because people didn't know how to support the police and to have this accountability measure, which gives us a historical marker of when we said we recognize the wrongs that have happened. We don't want to treat this like the Explorer case and just sweep it away and pay out the lawsuits. We're paying millions and millions of dollars in lawsuits from all of the wrongs from our police department. Why don't we formally document and make sure that we're doing this in a way that we don't repeat that behavior? So if it's not in the books that we don't I deal with it, then it's repeated. So it was a real challenge to get that done. And I didn't have the allies I thought I should naturally have. And honestly, I really felt like my colleagues should have did it before I came on council. And it shouldn't have been left up to me because I'm the activist Shameka. I'm Miss Police Accountability. So there's already this tension and this wall built when I'm just asking people to treat people right. I have police officers that I love and care about, and I always share. Almost became a police officer. I have family that's police officers, so I don't hate them all. I get it, but I also want people to survive those interactions and to be treated fairly, not because of their race or their zip code or their station in line.
And I hope that y'all heard what Councilwoman Parrish-Wright just said here at the end about being the activist, the community leader who people come to about issues related to policing, which is important, right? Of course, and you need to hold white elected officials
That's right.
accountable to that as well. So go to some of the white Louisville Metro Council members and say to them, you file ordinances and resolutions
That's right.
related
They'll
to
never do
police
it.
accountability.
Yeah, that thank you. That was a heavy load to carry, even amongst my black colleagues who some of them were running for office, so they were like, when people are running, they're worried about the FOP being against them and and people endorsing them or not supporting them. I know the FOP would never support my candidacy, but I've never been even when we were out in the square and I didn't even sing the F the police songs. I did say there's no F the fireman song for a reason, right? We understand the fireman's role and what they're supposed to do. Don't mean they're perfect, but there's no F the fireman song that I've ever heard of.
Right.
But the reason why policing is in trouble all over this nation and the world is because the power, our police chief is paid more than the mayor. He makes over $100,000 more than the mayor. And in all of our jobs, whoever's paid the most is literally the boss.
Yes.
And so you have something that's supposed to be the enforcement arm that kind of runs and manages our city. That is wrong. It is equivalent of the horse riding the man instead of the man riding the horse.
Yes.
And all I do is lift that up and say, that's a problem. It's going to breed more corruption. And here's the biggest deal. Police officers reach out to me and tell me thank you and tell me I appreciate what you're doing. Keep going. So if I was this enemy of the police, Why do those other police officers feel comfortable in saying that with me? Because they see the corruption, they see the problem in leadership, they see the disconnect. And with the FOP's letter, they see that, wow, every time the FOP never comes out and say, we're sorry. They come out and they wrote things about me and you. They wrote things about Chanel Ham with Black Lives Matter. When Kenneth Walker was released, they were mad. And so why is it you can't hold the troops that we have to hold? Some of your officers have violated people's rights again and again, from Slushy Gate to Explorer to regular traffic stops that people should be able to navigate. That's wrong. We're dealing with right and wrong. And so, yeah, thank you for saying that. Holding that as a council member, and I probably get all the reporter calls because of that, but I have to speak on truth and justice because I still feel something when the police get behind me. I got pulled over last week, leaving the council, going to Potbelly, taking my daughter to Potbelly on 4th Street. I go there, I've been driving downtown for 20 some years, go there all the time, but he said, you turned and it was red. But when he showed me the picture on the phone, both of the lights were red. And so he gave me a break. It was weird. I had just left council doing an interview about Lieutenant Stewart giving a pregnant woman a citation.
Wow.
So this is dangerous too. I don't talk about it a lot because I don't run on fear, but it's also dangerous to be in this role of holding the police accountable.
That's right. And I know that sometimes memories can be short, and particularly for us as Black women, but for Black people who are in elected office, particularly who tend to be in the streets with community, people tend to forget the experiences that we've had. And I remember when Councilman Corey Arthur was followed during the 2020 protests by police. So it's important that you all have long memories about what happened to the people who are showing up and being your advocates and your proxies in Louisville Metro government. So Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, I have a couple of questions I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to go back to the press conference that you did when you announced the People's Consent Decree resolution. So this question's a little long.
Okay.
So the last statement in the People's Consent Decree demands states that, again, we believe that the city of Louisville cannot move towards negotiations of the consent decree with the DOJ in good faith without these bare minimum things being addressed. Do you still believe that the consent decree needs to address the People's Consent Decree demands to be effective? So, for example, no additional money for LMPD, funding reallocations, open FOP contract negotiations, dropping protester charges, etc.
Yes, I still believe in those. Those are some of those are battles that's going to take a lot of time, and people need to understand the consent decree is going to take time and resources. It should not be rushed. We got to make sure that we follow the money. We deal with the red tape that's going to keep coming up. The police are the most protected workforce. They have a union working hard for them. They have protections that many of you and I don't have, right? And it's important that all of that protection, all of that funding, all of the resources come with a great deal of responsibility to the people who pay you. Our taxes pay you. The police are employed by all of you, not by the mayor. The mayor's not using his salary to fund the police. That is coming from our tax dollars. And because of that, we should have more say in the process. If we have a mayor who doesn't know how to hold them accountable and support them, then we need to make sure that we have a real voice in there. And if we don't have it in that administration, we need to have that. I work with Jock with Justice. I'm union girl. I understand union contracts. I understand how important they are. I understand that. But you are in a very public role. And because all of the harms, we need a public voice inside of there to tell us what's going on. They'll be outweighed anyway. It's like the accountability board. It doesn't really have a lot of teeth, but it can investigate. It can address things. So what's the harm in having somebody that the people elect be in there to represent the people's voice? Why are you against that? And I remember during the accountability board process, some people even thought that the police have a role in every key position in our city, but the people do not. They see us as civilians, as criminals, as people who don't matter, and but they are supposed to be serving us. You can't do it that way. So I think that every demand, I want to work for that in every way possible. Some of them I think will be easier to address. Some of them will take time because we need the political will to match what we're asking for.
Absolutely. And the people can help to build that
Yes,
political
they
will.
can. The people can. I believe in that.
That's right. So, decree resolution into the consent decree. So with your resolution, do you feel like there was anything that was added to the final filed consent decree?
I just want to commend. It couldn't have been easy. I watched the body language of Christian Clark and all of them coming out after they had signed it. And I saw them try to get Miss Palmer to sit up front, but she sat right in front of me. And I watched it. I look at body language. I wouldn't have survived my childhood if I didn't watch people. That couldn't have been easy for them to be there. I actually have more faith in Christian Clark than I do in some of the people that were a part of that. But I also know that because policing is in trouble, the DOJ is only going to be able to go so far, right? They're not there just to honor our rights. They're there to protect the institution of policing, to give it the integrity that it's supposed to have, to make sure that there's a line and that this constitutional policing that we deserve is honored, right? Because we do need crime solved. I do want crime solved. I do want people held accountable that have hurt people and different things like that. And I've been on every side of that, right? So I too had to be held accountable when I did some things I shouldn't have did. So I think that the issue is that when they came out, there was a cockiness, there was a bravado of like, yeah, we did what we did do, but we still run stuff. Like we only gonna do what we gonna do, and wanting to get all this credit for some things that started under Mayor Fisher. I've learned that about this administration. They take credit for everything because I guess if it happens in that time bubble, it counts. They can take credit, but they're taking credit for the reforms that I want to honor the legal team of the Breonna Taylor family. I want to honor the Breonna Taylor family because many of the reforms that they are claiming and touting are things that they asked for in their civil process that they didn't have to. So the people was like, oh, they just got the money, it's over with. No, they didn't just say pay, because you can't pay for a life. She would rather have her daughter than to have that money. She made that clear to me. I saw that. But they also said put these reforms in place so what happened to Breonna doesn't happen to anybody else, right? And so you're taking credit for something that you didn't initiate, that you damn sure didn't want to do, that we had to push you to even make a move because you were really trying to slick by, and we don't know what's coming with this new president. And so you're taking all this credit, but we're going to have to be this to follow up. And that's the one thing that has me how I was in Atlanta, where I considered when Chief Shields was hired, where I considered to run for mayor, is I said, we're not going to get the changes we need if we don't get the right person elected. That's what I'm feel like with this mayor, with him running for office. If he runs for, he's running for office. If and this consent decree is starting, by the time he runs for office, we'll be 2 years in. What's going to happen? So we may need a mayoral candidate that's able to hold it all, hold accountability, hold public safety, hold the needs of the people, and be able to say, we're going to make sure this consent decree is honored, it's respected, and it's followed through because he has the ability to direct the chief. See, the FOP is dealing with the officers.
Yes.
He directs the chief, which is the head of that. And if we ever going to get control of that snake, we need them all to be lined up and working together. So I would hope, I've met with the FOP before they had changes in their leadership. I mean, they just dealt with a theft ring and all of that, right? So they got a lot of problems. But I think that they should lean into this. This is an opportunity for them to show. There used to be a commercial with Sears, the software side of Sears, but this should be an opportunity for them to lean into what the people have been saying. And you don't agree with the DOJ findings, but they were fined and they were solidified. So I think that, like I said, we're going to need some lawyers to lawyer up and be ready to deal with this. But I think we should be meeting with the FOP and ask them, what's the real big issue? What's really the big issue? Is it the fact that you just don't want this mayor and this chief controlling? Because you got David James, he works for y'all. So like, what's the real problem? And then basically sitting at the table and going back to the drawing board. But I think the consent decree is vague enough that they can build in what they need to. And I don't think that they should be rushing it. I'm not interested in the end goal. I'm interested in the outcomes that we can accomplish while we through this. And there's been other examples in other cities. I think we take what works from them, but we also make Louisville's unique. It's been an embedded history and it's so embedded and corrupt that it's going to take time to really bring those changes. I'm invested in the time. What role I will play, I'm deciding that now. But do we need a mayor that's going to make sure it's see through? We might do. Maybe Greenberg's not capable of holding the people holding the police accountable during this consent decree process. And if he is, he needs to show it. And the FOP, they do have a point. They were left out of it at some point. We were left out. Welcome to the table, FOP. Now what you gonna do about it? Like, and at the end of the day, the people's voice shouldn't be lost. But that's why we need both. We need the DOJ consent decree and we need the people's consent decree because of what's happening now.
Absolutely. And Councilwoman Parrish-Wright has said a couple of times about the upcoming mayoral election. So I want people to know that that will happen in 2026, which is next year. So it's important for you to be thinking now, how are you going to contribute to the kind of leadership that we need
That's
in the
right.
mayoral administration office? The other thing that Councilwoman Parrish-Wright talked about is credit and taking credit for people's work. This is 2025. It's a new year. I want to be clear that this is the year of folks, stop saying it doesn't matter who gets credit as long as the work gets done, because what often happens is the black women who put in the work and do the work don't get acknowledged and don't get credit for the work that they do. So absolutely give people credit for the work that they do. Councilwoman Parrish-Wright is taking on quite a bit to be the leader that she was elected to be. So make sure you acknowledge that hard work. So I've got one more question for you,
Thank you for
Councilwoman.
that. Because, you know,
Of course.
when I said we use that money down when we raised at the park, we put it into those hotels. We put it into the restaurants. They gave us money. People from New Albany, the mayor from New Albany. It was such an amazing, beautiful thing to witness under such ugly circumstances. And we don't get credit for saving this city
Yes.
from burning. We don't get credit. They just condemn us. They condemn my campaign. They use my bail work against me in my campaign. They didn't show the difference between the bail project and the Louisville Community Bail Fund. They put us all together. I had people actively working against me. I have never raised money for personal gain out of all of my work there because I was honored that I still had a job that paid me. So I was there. I used my own money. And a lot of us lost money, business, all of that. And then at the end of the day, you can't even call us to the table when you're trying to make real changes. Like we held up out there when you didn't know what to do, and we held it up, but we're not civil enough to sit at a table with you during this decision making process. I think it's a slap in the face. And if it ever happened again, I can't say that I would have the same role because I wasn't protected. I got death threats. My family wasn't protected. And folks say, step up, be all you can be. But if you don't support people, I supported my team. I'm thankful for my Bail Project team. Many of them have went on to other jobs, but we're still fighting cases and stuff that we need to deal with. We got arrested. You know, like we could have lost our jobs. Our livelihood. You were an elected state official. It was no respect and no regard for us. And that to me, I wouldn't want to be employed by an employer that treated people like that. So
Wow.
thank you for honoring that because they take a lot of credit. That's why I ran because I said, if I don't run, they're going to run on our work.
That's
I
right.
said, they're going to try to take credit and run on our work. And then we're going to end up with some bad people in office because they've taken that. So you're right. I am one of those people that say you get more done and you don't care who gets
You
credit.
are.
I'm one of those people because I'm a worker bee
Yes.
and I love doing the work. But you are right. I have to start speaking out on those things because too many of us have suffered in silence financially, in so many other ways that we can't move forward.
That's right.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
saying that.
Of course. So this is the last question before we go into your press conference
Okay.
again. So what do you see as some of the disconnects between the three parties of the consent decree, the U.S. Department of Justice, Louisville Metro Government, and LMPD, and our community? So to dig a little bit deeper into that, what do people need to understand regarding the consent decree and what is happening with it right now, and why is the consent decree important?
Wow, it's important. So you have these entities with different agendas. I imagine the DOJ's agenda, and I'm not a lawyer. They want to see it done. They want to see it's embarrassing for their profession. It's embarrassing because everybody says we want new police recruits, and let's be honest, police recruitment has went down all over this nation over the past years, even before 2020. But even with COVID, it got worse. So don't blame that on protesters. That is ridiculous. But so you have people that have different agendas. You have people who want to keep the control and the fear and the public safety they say they're working on, which is that is the administration. But they are comfortable. The mayor never has to deal with what we deal with, right? if that was Rachel under that overpass that was sitting on the mattress, who really wasn't, clearly that woman didn't bring that mattress there, but she even wasn't even sleeping. She was sitting on that mattress. So technically, was she really unlawfully camping?
Right.
And she was pregnant. If I like Rachel Greenberg, she's a beautiful woman. They're pushing this first lady thing.
Yes.
But when I met her, she seemed really okay. But there's people who said she told us what to do. And I mean, they're acting like this is the president and it's a mayorship. First of all, that's the confusion.
Yes.
But if it was Rachel Greenberg under that overpass sitting on a mattress, pregnant, would she have received a citation? If it was a well-known lieutenant or police officer, David James's wife, I see her everywhere. If she was sitting on that mattress, would she had gotten a citation?
Right.
So like they do a lot of quid pro quo and taking care of themselves. We're as community are asking them to give us the same dignity and respect as you would the mayors, the first lady, David James's wife. If you wouldn't treat them two like that, then why are you treating our people like that?
That's right.
That's the best example again, because those are white women who are privileged, who never have to worry about when the police get behind them, because more than likely they're going to survive that interaction. Who can go and make a call and get anything dropped or anything done. Those women are very well protected, just like our police force. So we're asking for different things because we expect equality and fairness. Even while we was at the square during the protest, we expect, oh, they're going to protect us, but they didn't. So the different agendas are not aligned, but this document is the best way for us to get on one accord. It's a great start to get on one accord. So I think that it should be our local police Bible until they give us the community constitutional policing they say they want to give. So for me, that's how I look at the consent decree. Not that I think it's perfect, because the Bible don't do women right all the time
That's
either,
right.
right? But it is a guide to do things right and to make sure that we are holding accountability. So it's the best way, really, it's our best chance. All the attention on us nationally, internationally, because our mayor likes to live through press conferences. So we need the media attention. We need this binding document. Once the judge signs it and it's done and it's through that, we need that binding document or we're lost and we're back at the drawing board. So I think we have to get aligned. I think there's different agendas, but it's okay. We have different focuses, but this document is what's going to help us try to right some wrongs. But I don't think until the mindset of those who are in elected leadership changes and the political will is there to honor the people at all costs, it's going to be hard. So we need this document in the meantime. It's what holds them accountable. I always said people, it's like you have control over the house that your grandfather gave you. Your grandfather comes back, or your great aunt or your uncle. They come back and they say, Attica, what you doing in my house? Did you clean it? Did you do this? Did you do that? And they come back and you're going to straighten up, right? Because how can you? So that's how I look at it. Big Daddy has come in to parent our police and they earned it. They earned it and they should lean into it. So I don't think that Big Daddy would institute anything that would stop them from providing for public safety, that would make sure their officers aren't taken care of. I want them well paid, because I wouldn't leave somebody I underpaid to watch my kids. So why would I leave them people to watch my community?
That's right.
So I want them paid well. I want them to have the new stuff that they got. They're going to have the new building. They're getting everything but accountability. This is what's going to give us that.
Thank you for that. And really, you all, the U.S. Department of Justice is federal law enforcement. So, of course, they're not going to do something to harm law enforcement at the local or state level. So, we're going to watch a clip from Councilwoman Parrish-Wright's press conference around the People's Consent Decree resolution, where she speaks specifically about the independent monitoring.
We will need someone to help lead that monitoring process. So I suggest, if you want that to be you or somebody from the community, we start sending suggestions to our inspector general so that they can start considering they're going to build a team to do that, and our budget has allotted money for that team. But we need it to be a real community representative. It should not be a police officer. It should not be a former police officer, for many reasons. We have former police officers that are in our state house still acting like police officers. So that transition is hard for them, and I get it. They've been living a certain way. But for this, we need a real community voice. So in that process, they're trying to build a team. I suggest anyone interested in being an applicant, and it should be advocates applying for this, apply for that process to be a part of that monitoring, to give the people the voice, the updates, and making sure that real concerns are addressed.
So, Councilwoman, in that clip, you talked about the independent monitor. So, we know that the mayor's office has announced the independent monitor, that they are currently accepting proposals. And in fact, the deadline for
I was gonna
proposals,
say the deadline's closed.
the deadline's on my birthday,
Oh
January 30th.
wow,
So, that's why I
wow.
won't forget that
That's
deadline.
right.
So, can you talk some about your reflections on what this consent decree says about the independent monitor role?
I think the independent, now that it's signed, independent monitor role to me is being rushed. You know, what kind of applicant you're going to get? Most of them are working or doing some type of project. And what kind of person are you going to get in that short time frame? And then the ones that do, I just don't think it's been enough time. It didn't roll out exactly when the first press conference hit. It was delayed. And then I've been hearing, I haven't went out. Usually when those kind of things happen, I try to apply myself or just go see. I didn't get to do that, but I'm hearing there's a whole application process or a fee to access the app or the online portion of that. Was that what I read? Like it was like $499,
Yes.
or that's something else. Okay,
No, it's the same thing.
it's the same thing.
Yes.
So like people trying to access that, everyday folks would not have that. That's the thing, is like these things seem so arbitrary. Like we made the announcement, but we already know who we're going to hire. So it makes me think they already have some money in line. What really interested me is that they said they want an unbiased person. But if that person was a former police officer and like top cop police officer, how would they be unbiased? Yes, they'll know the procedures, they'll know standard operating procedures, they'll know some of the inner workings. I get that, so you don't have to do that learning curve. But how would they be unbiased? But if this is what they've used in the process before in other consent decrees, I say let's see what happens. Let's see who these applicants are. What worries me is that these processes seem to be, they already have their person chosen, and I don't know how much people will really have insight. We heard the same thing around police chiefs.
Yes.
These police chiefs are important to our community. We should be engaged in that process. So I'm worried that we have the voice that we deserve in this process.
That's right.
But it's one of those things where you gotta have blind faith and trust the process as it goes. And so I'm worried about it, but I'm also going to watch it. I'm asking more people to watch it. I'm asking people who do this work to kind of deep dive and give us the questions we should be asking this monitor. But I want the monitor to be a success. I want it to be a successful position. I don't think they should be housed in the police department. I think they should be partnered with the inspector general. I don't know where he is with this, but I think it just makes sense for them to work together because they're already starting to investigate things. So I'm hoping that partnership is solidified and that they get to have a more holistic view of our police department. So I'm worried about who it might be, but I plan to be a part of the process as much as possible.
Excellent. And I do want to clarify what you talked about. So, go myself to check on the independent monitor application process.
Yeah.
So there are two. There's a bonfire. There's a bonfire account hub that you can directly
Yeah.
to apply for the independent monitor position. That does pop up as $499 that you have to pay to access bonfire. Then you go through LouisvilleKY.gov bonfire.hub to apply and that $499 then does not pop up. So some people may have gone to just directly bonfire.hub, seen it, and thought, oh, I can't afford the
Yeah.
$499, so I'm not going to apply. So I just want to be really clear
Okay.
about that. And to say that Stay Live Streams has shared on its platform the application link so folks can go there and look it up themselves. You're absolutely right that when the press conference happened, I believe it was December 13th,
Yes.
to announce the filing of the consent decree, Mayor Greenberg said that that day they were announcing the independent monitor position. That didn't happen until 10 days later,
Yeah.
the day before Christmas or Christmas Eve. So let's keep in mind what you said, that this also means the application process for some people won't even be seen because it was Christmas and then it was New Year and then you have MLK Day in the middle of all of that before it's due.
Sure
So there's
do.
you're right. It seems like and feels like it's a rushed process with very little time for people to actually submit a thorough application. And if you go and look right now to who has applied, you'll see that there are very few black-owned independent monitor positions that or organizations that have applied, which is really important to lift up and to note. And you're right that it's independent, which means it should not be housed within the police department.
That's right.
I do also want to remind folks who are tuning in that Stay Live Streams did have an interview last month with the Inspector General here in
Oh, that's
Louisville.
right. You did
Yes,
it.
Mr.
Yeah.
Harness, and we did ask him about the differences he saw between his office of Inspector General as well as the Independent Monitor, and he did share that. So you're right, there could be some wonderful symbiosis there, and
Yes.
important,
And
impactful
he had
symbiosis
challenges
there.
getting
He still has
information.
challenges,
Oh,
he
I
said.
I remember because I put attending those meetings. I've been able to attend a
Yes,
couple on my agenda because I'm like, we got to make sure that we support him as well because it was historic even getting him in that position or
yes,
getting that position. So you're right. And then we need more people to apply. If you're interested, I mean, I know that they're looking for certain experiences, but I think that we need more applicants as well to make sure we have a real diversified applicant pool. But as you said, this like how can we get the word out? We need the time and the resources. And actually, who has the time to apply?
that's
Like,
right.
who do we get to be able to do that? But yeah, thank you for sharing
Of
that.
course. So this is my last question for you,
Okay, last
Councilwoman,
question, y'all.
and then I'll ask you for some closing
Okay.
comments. So as we know, the Fraternal Order of Police has filed a motion to intervene,
Hmm.
which has led to an in-person hearing, which will take place on Monday, January 13th, 2025 at 9 a.m.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts about this motion to intervene, and how could the outcome of this motion impact our community?
I think it's already impacting our community. I think people are disgusted that this is happening. I'm sure the River City FOP has their reasoning. I've read some of it, but I think that they're picking and choosing battles that they should just be leaning into and being on the right side of history by embracing this consent decree and understanding that there's no way the proper policing is going to do this in a way that dishonors or takes away from the police officers' ability to do their jobs and have the things that they need. Their contracts. I helped host a reading of a public reading of their contracts several times. Even Travis Najee
Oh,
participated, and we read those contracts out. They're so tedious and complicated, and they got lawyers and all these people fighting hard for them. But who's fighting that hard for the people? And so to me, you all have already won. Why intervene at this point? But I hope our folks who are able to show up to that hearing to really listen to the real reasoning behind it so that we can start dissect it and start to address it. People understand unions and understand that their job is to support their teams and their employees. But what we see here is that a lot of wrongs has happened and the union did nothing about that. So what are you going to do to make sure things are better? You had your opportunity to make things better for the community, but you weren't able to do it. So it tells me that you don't have the purview, the insight, or the connections, or the ability to reform the police by yourself. So you need to let this process happen. And I'm willing to come to the table and talk to you. And I'm sure there's faith leaders. I talk to many pastors and preachers and people who work within and outside of metro government and corrections. There's people who could come to you and talk to you about what could work. So let's lean into this from a place of why we can say yes instead of why we are saying no. Just saying no for the hell of it or just doing your same old usual rhetoric of we're against this shows that you are not supporting accountability, and you cannot be a law enforcement without supporting accountability. That that doesn't make sense. And so we need to make sure that you all are considering everything that's at play.
thank you so much for that, Councilwoman.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time on your birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Y'all should have seen it earlier. We did
Chapter
sing,
48.
yes, the Stevie Wonder version of Happy Birthday to the Councilwoman. I think that's the only version, but anyway.
It is you know.
So, Councilwoman, do you have any brief closing comments for the Stay Live Streams viewers?
I always say, Louisville, I love you. Kentucky, I'm fighting for you. We're worth fighting for. I know it's long. I know it's hard, and all of us don't have the energy or the time or the resources to be in these roles, but help us. Help us, the ones that are able to show up, help us. When people start dragging us or just talking about ulterior motives that we don't have, come to us, ask us what our agenda is. And most of all, I need more of you to get involved. Apply for positions, apply for boards and commissions. I'm happy to support you as councilwoman. I want to see more people on our boards and commissions to help with the decision making. Those of you who are best friends with the Greenberg administration, talk to them. Tell them that you cannot keep doing the same old thing and expecting different results. Tell them to stop just having yes people at the table, to have people that are going to ask the questions and are going to help them challenge themselves. If you're not being challenged, you're not about change. And I want to make sure that we are doing the right thing. If I see that this administration is willing to listen and make the changes, I will support that. But I don't see that happening right now. People are prideful and cocky, and actually, if we want to change things, if we want to imbalance, it starts with us. It starts in those boardrooms. It starts in that decision making. I'm about ending the violence and decision making in every way that I can. Everybody else can focus on whatever part of it they focus on, but that's where I'm at, and I'm okay with that. And no, I'm not perfect, but I will damn sure stand up for Louisville. I love you, and yeah, let's keep fighting. And thank you for Chapter 48.
Wonderful. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in to our interview with Councilwoman Parrish-Wright. It is 2025, and in the words of Harriet Tubman, keep going. We need people of goodwill to use their power and their voice all throughout this year. Remember always to stay healthy, stay safe, and stay live.
I love that.
Like Granddaddy taught me to do. And stand up for family. And fight back. But you been respected for too long.
They don't expect that. We're not gonna have our kids marching. This is it.
Once and for all!
Justice for Patrick!
Justice for Patrick!
Justice for Patrick!
As a black man, I stand up for black women.
I don't want to say another motherfucking name! Jordan! 400 years later, not a damn thing changed!
I stand up for black women because it's what I'm supposed to do.
It's all one fight. The same people that suppress the vote, they'll suppress your living rate.
It's standing up for freedom, a freedom that knows action, a love that is in action.
I'm broke like a, being like a,
Enough is enough!
I'm not sleeping, and I'm not done until we get justice.
Ain't no curling, people don't stop.
What's got to go? Hey, hey! Oh, oh! Let's go to what's got to go!
Why is everybody, why is the police fighting against us, but they're supposed to be helping us? That doesn't make sense.
If black women don't do it, then it don't get done. That's what I'm hearing.
When I say gun, you say no.
Don't forget what we did today. Today is history. Don't just go home and say,